It's going live, but then I see the little sign and we are live. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to another cause-driven conversation. Today we have a really cool guest. I mean, I feel like I say that all the time because we really do have the best guests that you could possibly ask for. Henry, I'm the executive director of the YMCA Youth and Family Services branch in Washington, D.C., and my co-host is...
Andre Anthony, Executive Director with the YMCA of Rockville Valley in beautiful Rockford, Illinois.
And we are super, super excited today to bring you yet another cause-driven conversation. For those of you that don't know, these are conversations where we meet and chat with a dynamic leader from across the movement, locations. So I am currently in Maryland, the state of Maryland, in a city called Silver Spring, and Andre, you are in
beautiful Rockford, Illinois.
And today our guest is Tina Weaver, who is, where are you at, Tina?
I'm in Asheville, North Carolina.
I love Asheville, North Carolina. I actually got lost in Asheville, North Carolina one time, but that's a story for another day.
I'm impressed that you've been
here. So, Tina, welcome to the conversation, and thank you for joining us. Started with these conversations pretty much the same all the time. We ask you who you are and what you do and like who you really are. Like, what? Give us, like, you know, you're more than just a position. So tell us about yourself as a person.
Yeah. So again, my name is Tina Weaver. I am the Director of Program Development for the YMCA of Western North Carolina. We're nestled in Western North Carolina, so really sitting inside the mountains in the foothills that really boast a beautiful environment. Inside my role for the YMCA, I do a lot of strategic planning for all of our center-based programs. And that's going to include like your aquatics, your sports, your youth and family programs. So I have the opportunity to work across all 8 centers that we have. For me as an individual, I am a very determined individual to serve my community as a servant in all components. What does that mean? As I'm a mother, I am a partner, I am a sports enthusiast and outdoor athletic enthusiast, but first and foremost, I feel like in everything I do that I am a servant to my community.
I like that. I like that. And if you could please take this opportunity to tell folks more about, you are the vice chair of one of our employee resource groups. If you can take a moment and just tell the movement a little more about that employee resource group, we'll greatly appreciate it.
Sure. So I'm the vice chair of the LGBTQ employee resource group. So the lesbian, gay, bi, transgender, and queer employee resource group. With that group, we've had a little bit later inception of our ERG, and it came to life really in 2009 when we gained some really strong national support at that point in time of understanding the importance and the attention needed around such a minority group, particularly inside of our movement. That being said, our work is just as pivotal as the next ERG. We're focusing a lot on how our YMCAs see and support LGBTQ communities in their local areas. A prime example of that is the North Carolina bill that came out 2 years ago, or excuse me, a year and a half ago, called HB2. If you guys are familiar with anything with that, It was a pretty damning bill that really put a lot of hurt onto the LGBTQ community. Our ERG was right at the front of response to that, and we had drafted a letter and had it vetted through the proper persons and inked by Mr. Kevin Washington so glowfully. And when he did that, we pushed out a letter to all of our YMCAs really acknowledging and stating our position that we will welcome all with a safe and just as welcoming environment to the next person beside you, and that is for our LGBTQ community. So as far as our employee resource group, that's an example of some of the work that we do. But we also get really deep into local ERGs, look at how our policies in those local ERGs are servicing those LGBTQ persons within their YMCAs. We'll look at employee manuals, things of that nature, and make sure that our community is really understood and not put in as a second-class citizen, for sure.
Wow, that's fantastic. Super excited to have you and to learn more about what your ERG is doing for our YMCA community. That locally, one of the things we've been talking about is like how do we become more inclusive and open to all, even down to like our participant forum. So, I mean, this conversation can go all over the place. But what do you believe, Tina, the Y should consider to be more sensitive or even just aware of LGBTQ plus, because I just learned that one, issues in our community?
So Carson, you jumped in, but just to recap the question, what are some issues that LGBTQ persons see in certain communities? Was that the question?
It was also, what should we as a YMCA movement do to be considerate or aware or sensitive to that? And I was giving you a shout out for teaching me about LGBTQ plus, because that was a new addition to my vocabulary.
Yeah. Okay. That's a fabulous question. You know, as we had discussed earlier, you could add another letter on to the end of this. We'll go through the entire and wrapped our arms around this entire community. The great thing about the LGBTQ community is, if you look at it, it really stretches across all facets of life. So, or you're Asian, or you're male, female, a millennial, or an active ager, it stretches across every single facet of life. So when you think of that, you really have to understand that LGBTQ really embraces every single person. There's no stopping point of that, and there's definitely no exclusion by any means. So when we ask what our Ys should be doing, when we ask how should our Ys be more inclusive, it's almost like take a page from this book, take a page from this community. Really understand that when we say we're for all, it doesn't matter your sexual orientation, because it doesn't matter your creed. It doesn't matter, you know, your origin. Sexual orientation should not be a factor in that at all. But it's often seen as a factor. And so as far as us to actively work across our movement to be more inclusive, I would challenge us to educate and to befriend someone of that community. The bigger our cultural lenses and the broader understanding of how we can work with other individuals that may not have the same physical bearings or skin color or orientation that we may have is only going to make us that much better. Looking at issues of in our personnel policies, does our do expected parents, this is a great example, in our personnel policies, does your personnel policy recognize that LGBTQ parents who are soon to have their child, do they have the equivalent rights as a heterosexual couple as far as time off? And there are some gaps on that across the movement, but that's where we can look at those items. Same thing with recently with marriage equality came through. I'm a proud advocate of that. I had the rights given to me in that regard. But before, does your personnel policy recognize marriage equality across the board? So if something happens to your partner in life, are you able to take some FMLA to really be with that person, things of that nature? That's really diving into the personnel policy of it, and we've done some really great attention around that work. But even beyond that, I would encourage you all to participate in your local pride events, be part of those communities and see what you can learn from the person that's just walking beside you, because it's your mother, it's your brother, it's your sister. LGBTQ stretches across all facets of life.
There's a lot to unpack there, and I'm really glad. This is what I love. This is why I love, the fact that Carson and I get to do this. This is a privilege, because this conversation right here is what we are about. This is what the YMCA movement since 1844 has been about. Going into a community, if there is a need, if there's inequality, if there's discrimination, if there's anything that comes short of us treating every human being the way that each individual human being wants to be treated, this is what we do as a movement, is address that. So I'm really glad that we're able to touch on this. So we normally end these conversations with a hashtag real talk moment, right? And it's generally something that you've learned that is actually true from personal experience. May or may not be provocative, but especially if it does apply to someone who needs a reality check. But above all, it's something that all of us must hear and come to grips with. So that's our hashtag real talk moment. Given everything that you've elocuted and everything that you've said over the last few minutes, if there's one nugget, if there's one thing that you would want to tell the movement that is a good succinct summation of everything that you've addressed today, what would that be? What would be that drop the mic, hashtag real talk nugget that we should walk away from this conversation with?
Yeah. That's a big question. But I think if I had to drop the mic, it would be a really strong question that I would put back to the movement. And it would be, why do stereotypes exist? And why do we have to have them? What is the real purpose behind a stereotype? And what value does it have, if any? And those stereotypes are going to continue to exist unless we challenge them, unless we put a real strong foot in that door and say, this is not right. This is not the position that the Y movement is going to be in. We need to be the ally you're capable of being. And again, I go back to those words I said earlier. You're the ally of your brother, your sister, your cousin, your son, or your daughter. And believe it or not, LGBTQ representation across the nation, although it's seen, right around 7-8%, that's what's out and about. You've got more friends. I can trust you this. There's more CEOs, there's more COOs, there's more leadership in this movement that is out, that are not out because of the stereotypes that really overshadow that thought. So as we look and stand beside each other, we have to continue to challenge stereotypes. And why do we have them? Because as a Y, we're not going to back those. We're going to be inclusive for all.
Wow. And on that note, wow. I just want to take a second to reflect on with you to realize, a century ago, we wouldn't be part of the Y in any way, shape, or form. And I know we've all got our own Y experiences and our own beliefs, and
none of us would have been.
So it's phenomenal to conversation to explore that, to think about that truth you just dropped about people really not being able to necessarily be their authentic selves. So I appreciate you both so much for being your authentic selves. Thank you for joining us today. We're super, super happy we had the chance to expose or introduce you to our group. Share the video with your colleagues and friends so that they will be able to spread the word and answer our question. Andre, as always, it's good to talk to you, brother.
You too, brother. Thank you.
And on behalf of myself and Andre, we just want to say thank you very much for joining in. We hope that you keep the conversation going, and I hope you tune in for the next conversation. Where we'll be this time I'm gonna get it right.
Yep.
Our next conversation will be featuring the African American Resource Network, Mr. James Morton. They're gonna promote heavy, so hopefully you'll be tuned in and joining us live. And if not, thank you very much. And you guys have anything you want to say?
Have a great weekend. Enjoy Memorial Day. Please honor our troops, both current and past. And yeah, thank you all for joining us. And please share this conversation, this very, very important conversation. Give us your feedback, comments, thoughts on Twitter using the hashtag ELRN Nation. So it's ELRN ATION. ELRN ATION. Hashtag. Gotta hashtag it.
All right. Thank you and good night.